Okay, so today we're diving into something that's been making a lot of noise, Trump's executive order about basically potentially shutting down the entire Department of Education.
Yeah, it's a big one, and we've got this video analysis breaking it down that we've been looking at to kind of wrap our heads around it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
And this video does a really good job of laying out not just what the order says, but why it matters, what the background is and what the potential fallout could be.
Oh, right, because I think for a lot of people, it's like, okay, executive order, is this really going to happen? What does this actually mean?
Exactly. So that's what we're going to try to unpack.
Yeah.
What's the core of this thing? What's Trump's thinking? What are the roadblocks? And then the big question, what could it mean for education here in the U.S.?
Yeah, and I think the first thing that jumps out from the video and the order itself is like, okay, he's directing the education secretary to start dismantling the department, which sounds really dramatic.
Yeah, end of story, right?
Yeah, right. But then it gets interesting because they specifically say certain things are going to be protected, like funding for Title I schools, Pell Grant support for kids with disabilities.
So right away, you're like, okay, if those huge things are staying, what's actually being targeted here?
Exactly. And I think that leads right into the why question. What's the motivation?
Yeah, why go through all this trouble?
Well, the video lays out how Trump has constantly criticized the Department of Education, calling it a big con job, wasteful, ideologically biased.
Yeah, he's used that liberal ideology line a lot.
Right. And it points out that this isn't some new idea. He brought up similar stuff in his first term, but Congress pretty much blocked him.
So this is like round two.
Yeah, exactly. And I think understanding that context is important to kind of see where this is coming from.
Okay, so he's got this goal. He's taking another swing at it. But the video's also clear that, an executive order doesn't just magically make it happen, right?
Oh, yeah, there are a ton of hurdles. And the video does a good job of breaking them down. Like, first off, to actually get rid of the Department of Education, you need Congress to sign off because it was created by Congress back in '79.
And I'm guessing they aren't just going to rubber stamp this.
Yeah, I mean, the video points out some Republicans might be on board, but Democrats are going to fight this tooth and nail.
Yeah, no surprise there.
Right, and even Trump himself is saying he needs Congress to cooperate, and even teachers' unions, which is interesting.
Yeah, that shows how much of an uphill battle this is.
Yeah.
He knows he can't just dictate this.
Right, there's a difference between wanting something and actually making it happen.
For sure. And the video also brings up a huge practical concern, the money.
Oh, yeah, billions of dollars flow through the Department of Education every year for K-12 and higher ed.
Right. So what happens to all that if the department is gone, even if it's just parts of it?
Well, the video highlights that this could cause a lot of uncertainty, disruption in funding streams for schools, students, educators across the country.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal for anyone connected to education in the U.S.
Absolutely. And it makes you realize this isn't just some abstract political fight. This has real world consequences.
Right. And the video also does a good job of putting this into a bigger picture. It points out that Trump has this whole push for reforming the government.
Right. Like cutting costs, reducing the federal workforce.
Exactly. And they even mention how other agencies like USAID could be on the chopping block too.
So it's like this education thing is part of a larger philosophy about the role of the federal government.
Right. And I think it's important to keep that in mind because it helps explain why this is happening now.
Exactly. It's not just about education. It's about a whole vision of how government should work.
Okay. But even with all that said, the video brings us back down to earth with a key point.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the executive order shutting down the Department of Education is far from a done deal.
Not at all. I mean, remember we talked about Congress needing to approve it.
Right. And they haven't been super receptive to this in the past.
Exactly. So the video basically leaves us in this uncertain place. Like, we know what Trump wants, but actually making it happen is a whole other story.
Right. And that uncertainty, I think, is the biggest takeaway here.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes us think, okay, regardless of what happens with this particular order, what is the future of federal involvement in education?
Yeah, like what should that role be? What should it look like?
Huge questions,
Yeah.
right? And I think this executive order, whether it succeeds or not, really forces us to confront them.
Totally, because at the end of the day, there's a ton of money involved, millions of students and teachers, and the whole way education works in this country hangs in the balance.
So, yeah, this is a big one, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. But for now, I think the question for everyone listening is, what do you think are the most crucial parts of the Department of Education? And if there was going to be a change, what would a reformed role for the federal government in education look like down the road?
Yeah. It's a big question, but it's one we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. Thanks for diving in with us today.
Yeah, this was a good one.
And for everyone listening, we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.